Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the fifth edition of Pathways webinar series. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, just to let you know, this is a series of webinars started by Sportz Village. The idea is to just get some of the questions that we at Sportz Village keep hearing from parents around kids, sports, play, fitness, performance, and so much more. But we don't have all the answers to. Therefore, this is a small attempt to get these questions answered by some of the experts in the field. And today we are talking about building champion mindsets. This is a topic which we've heard a lot of questions in our work in the last 20 years from parents and kids. Stuff like, my child is so good at sports, but when he enters a match play condition, he just loses all his confidence. What do I do? How do I take the fear out? How do I get him to play more, perform better? There's so much that the parents want to know of. And I'm happy to say that today we have an elite, esteemed panel to talk on the same topic, building champion mindsets. I would like to first introduce the panel to you guys. First, we have Mr. Amit Gadkari. Amit is the founder and director at Nudge Sports. Hi, Amit. Welcome to the Pathways webinar.
Thank you, Nupur. Excited to be on this chat.
Thank you. Also, to let you all know, Amit, in his company at Nudge Sports, he helps athletes in mental conditioning. So that's his forte. Second, we have Ms. Vardhini Korhe. She is a sports psychologist, and she also runs a company, Mind First Perform. It's a consultancy to, again, help athletes perform at their full potential with their performance. Vardhini, again, welcome to the webinar. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Nupur. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Last, we have Ayan. Ayan has a very strong research experience in sleep, the link between sleep and performance, diet and performance. So we'll have lots of interesting questions that will come to Ayan in the course of the webinar today.
I hope so. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And also welcome to all the parents who are joining us for the webinar. So let's start. Amit, I think the first question I would like to put to you, which is, at sports, when you think of sports, I think in my mind, and hopefully in a lot of people's mind, the idea that, or the picture that comes is fun. It's supposed to be fun. You go out, play with your friends, have, just enjoy. It's supposed to be fun. But somebody tells me that today a lot of kids are dropping out of sports because of performance pressure. And that just seems such a huge concern to me. What do you think is happening? What are we doing wrong?
You're absolutely right. I mean, and there are statistics to kind of validate this, that kids are dropping out. There's no research in India, but I don't see the numbers, which are really worrying. And for parents who are on this chat, 3 out of 4 kids stop playing the sport that they have really loved and enjoyed playing by the time they reach the age of 12 or 13. So clearly something is wrong. And I wouldn't say there are so many distractions, but I think parents and coaches of younger kids, especially kids who are in that age group of 8 to 12, where they've really taken up to a sport or to multiple sports, right? So it's not that we have all, as kids, we played not just one sport, we played 2 or 3 sports. But I think the expectations from the parents and the coaches at that young age puts so much of pressure on the child that the child just says, hey, I'm not going to play this sport. And there are so many other options, right? And then the child goes back into a non-sporting mindset. And, there are so many distractions. You have social media, everything else. So I think parents and coaches have a really important role to play with the child at a younger age.
Got it. So, Vardhini, you also work with a lot of parents. And in your view, to minimize this pressure, which Amit just spoke about, what is the role of parent one and what is the role of the coach?
Okay, I think both the parent as well as the coach play a very important role in developing a very strong and a positive environment okay, with the player. So by environment, I mean, how do they, how do they talk? How do they communicate? What are their expectations from, the kid when it comes to winning tournaments? How do they react when they lose? Okay, so all these things, are very important markers for the kid to understand what is important for me at this age. So for example, maybe a 8-year-old at that time, winning, losing may not matter much, if you see the overall picture. But because of, expectations from the coaches, from the parents, they start focusing only on the element of winning and losing. And that itself is a, huge pressure point or a huge pressure parameter, which the kid, when they grow up to the age of 15, 16, they start viewing only that as winning and losing as a part and parcel of, sports. That's the only thing what matters. But if you see at that age, there are a lot of other things which actually make the sport more enjoyable, which is development, or like going from A to B when it comes to skill development. And all this is where the coach and the parents, their conversations, their viewpoint about all this matters. Okay, so if a parent or the coach starts speaking more about gaining mastery over the sport rather than winning and losing, I think the pressure is eased off. It's more to do with, okay, development. It's more to do with, yes, this is helping me in my health. Okay, so that's how, the conversations matter. What you actually converse with the kids.
But tell me, I mean, it's a young child, right? The concepts of health, fitness, I think they are alien for them. We don't think about health and fitness when we are kids, right? It only comes to me when we are reaching a certain age and we, start feeling these things. But as a child, you feel like you're the fittest person around, right? You don't think about health and the obesity, right? So then what should a parent ask a child after he comes back from a game? What would you like him to ask? If not, did you win or lose?
Okay, how was the game today? That's a better question to ask. How was the game today? Or, did you enjoy your game? Okay, so rather, because the first question, like you said, it'll always be like, "Aaj kya haare ya jeete?" That is the first question.
Yeah.
But the follow-ups, if if it is a loss, it's like, okay, so, but still, did you enjoy your game? Like, did you know what were your pluses, minuses? I know this sounds a very, you can say, like I said, very methodological when I'm speaking, but it does matter when, they say that, okay, what were the good things you learned? It's not about winning or losing. Even if that is conversed, that itself, I think, then, slowly the kid also starts. It's not like one night, they're not going to change. The kids also, they love pressure, they love the competition, they like to win.
Exactly.
Kids are like that. But even if they start driving that conversation, the kids will automatically start thinking about it. Okay, what matters more is like, I have participated today, okay, and I can still win the next time. So it's not like today is the end of the thing. Secondly, I think describing some role models. So for example, if a cricketer adores someone like Kohli, okay, so just telling them the fact that Virat Kohli has not scored like 50s or centuries in every matches.
That's a good one.
They also fail. So that is very important. And I think the third point I want to mention is the parents themselves or the coaches themselves are big role models for the kids. So how they react to even successes, failures at, say, suppose their workplace, or if they are playing something, that also matters a lot. Like how they receive failures, how they receive successes. That definitely matters a lot. So like you said, yes, health and all may not count, but if a parent is exercising for health, it definitely counts. So it's like, speaking
so you
more
are your
than
child's first role model, right? So
correct.
What you believe in, what you practice, you'll automatically pick those things.
Yes.
Okay. But tell me, Amit, Vardhani, I think both of your thoughts, there is this other school of thought, right? Where if you see movies around Tiger Woods or, I think even, a lot of other Michael Phelps and others, where the parent from day one, the Dangal in our case, right, in a Hindi movie case, where the parent from the day one has, decided for himself that my child is going to be this next superstar. The Williams sisters, all of those, and these are success stories. We see them in movies. We see that parent has decided, parent has worked hard, parent has put in that winning attitude in the child, and they have become the superstars of the world. So and that's a template to follow, maybe. So, but what we're discussing right now is maybe a little subdued, but then does it take away that winning attitude from the child, from the parent? How do you balance that then?
Amit, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just I want, these examples, yes, of course, they're real life examples, but they are more an exception than a rule, right? So we know these handful of examples, and they're again only a handful. But we don't know about the millions of kids who've given up the game purely because of the pressure. I'll give you an example. I got a call from, see the intentions of the parents. I mean, there is nothing that we are pointing out that the intentions are wrong. The intentions are always, I mean, as a parent, I'm a parent, we want our kids to do well, right? And our intentions are always good. But I had I'll give you an example. I had a call from this guy who said, hey, my nephew, he's a 4-year-old boy and he plays outstanding cricket. I want him to start playing IPL. So where can I start coaching? So can you imagine the pressure that this 4-year-old boy would be subjected to? Yes, of course, there are exceptions, and you need to let the child really enjoy for the first few years. Just get them to enjoy the sport, because the moment the child really loves the sport, the child automatically starts putting in the effort to improve his or, because we all know when we play a sport, whether we are good or bad, because we are comparing ourselves with the others, right? So we all know intrinsically. So let the child develop, enjoy the sport. And then, then you also need to then ensure that the child follows a certain discipline, because you know that the potential is there. But there is a certain way of handling that. You cannot be sitting on and that's where, someone like a Vardhani, Ayan, with their experience, they are able to kind of guide not just the child, but more so the parents and the coaches to handle that situation better.
Got it. Vardhani, Ayan, both of your thoughts on this?
I just have one thing to add. I think, like Amit said, the examples that you mentioned are exceptional. They are people who, for example, in Dangal or like the Fogart sisters, they grew up in that environment. Okay. So it's like not like, it's nothing different for them. For them, it was like a norm. Like, okay, this is how it is going to be. Same with, I think, the Williams sisters, because the father was there. He was out there, like, in tennis, like he's in that environment. But we see parents who are not from the sporting environment trying to push the kids. They have to excel in school, they have to excel in studies, everything, has to be A1. But that cannot happen with everyone, right? Like if you see, like, Sachin Tendulkar, I think he had it in him. Okay. He had it in him. He knew that he had to do it. Okay. And luckily had a supporting environment at home. So, but then if suppose someone who's not bound to or doesn't like to play as much, they might just like it as a hobby. Okay. But still the parents are pushing them to excel in the sport. It's going to be difficult for the child to, grapple with that pressure. So hence, it's about like not putting the kid under unnecessary pressure at the age of 8, 9, because then by the time they are 12, I think they're already burned out, some of them. But if they're, led to enjoy the sport or led to believe that, the sport is for your enjoyment, I think that itself will help the kid grow, overall have a better growth because of sport, like, as a life skill.
Okay.
Just to kind of add to
what
that,
I'm hearing is if you Yes, please. Yeah.
No, just to kind of add to that, absolutely, I agree with both Amit and Vardhini. It's also, it depends on the environment that you're in, and it depends, and those are a handful of examples you get. But also at the same time, you also find that it's important to let the child explore the sport and what they want to do. And I think that's very crucial. Like if you take somebody like a Michael Jordan, for example, his father was a baseball player and tried to groom him as a baseball player, and that never happened. He met with abject failure and ended up going back into basketball after retiring, And the same thing goes with somebody like a Rahul Dravid or a Mahendra Singh Dhoni or a Virat Kohli, who all explored different sports before they actually got to the sport that they actually wanted to go to. So I think that's something that's, I think, that needs to be taken into consideration, I think, more than anything.
I think Nupur is.
Yes,
probably, maybe we could just share some other examples, for the parents and the others who are attending. I think Nupur is back there.
Yeah.
I also had one example wherein the boy I was training was a 9-year-old, and very enthusiastic family in tennis. The boy was also very, very, super enthusiastic about the sport. But the parent approached me as a sports psychologist because they found like a sudden drop in interest. And the reason was, when I explored the reason, it was because the parent had put the kid in 2 different academies, because they wanted him to get exposed to 2 different coaches, best of the coaches. But then at the age of 9, I think, it's very difficult to absorb 2 different coaching philosophies, understanding the skills differently, because that's the age wherein they, like I said, they have to develop a mastery in the skills at that age. It's not a time where, you explore different coaching styles. And that put immense pressure on the kid, saying that I'm not good according to this coach, or I'm not good according to that coach. Now that creates a lot of confusion and unnecessary, it takes the enjoyment from the game. So such things, such examples, when I see, it's like, I know the parent wants the best for the kid, but sometimes, putting too many things on the platter also doesn't help.
Got it. So again, I think what I'm hearing is, if you are able to develop an interest and enjoyment for the sport among in the child's mind, then the intrinsic goes out, and the pressure probably, hopefully, is not there, and it's more internal, that he wants to play more because it's fun, and that competition is anyway there. Competition is not going anywhere. Sport is, by definition, competition. Okay. So tell me, without creating pressure, parent still means good for the child. And as a parent, what are your child's weaknesses, maybe, that confidence, like I spoke about in the at the start of the webinar. What are the simple things that the parent can do to, without creating too much pressure, still instill these mental skills within the child?
First of all, like I said, mental for, I'll talk about 2 different age groups. Let's start with like 8 to 10, that age group, or like pre-teens, or like very early, before they get into teen. That's the time when, they are still like, looking up to their parents. They are the first people who they will like, connect with, rather than someone else, because coach is also new. So firstly, like I earlier said, role modeling. They are still looking to them as role models. So having something like, say, suppose, we usually introduce breathing exercises as a part of your relaxation training or anxiety management. Helping the child, not just telling, chalo breathing exercise karo. That's not the way they're going to do it. Doing it as a family, or maybe if, the whole family has no time, maybe one parent sitting with the kid and doing it themselves. That definitely creates, that whole thing was like, yes, okay, if my mom is doing it, if my dad is doing it, even I'm going to do it, that kind of thing. So instilling that. Secondly, something like journal writing or diary writing, which will help, create that habit of the positives, negatives, what they've learned from the game, or if they post match, if they want to write something, again, not instructing them, just do it. Possibly sitting with them and like saying and analyzing, saying, okay, what was a good thing? Write that today. Let's write it together. Something like that. So just being a little more involved in the process as parents, I think that will create. So these two things I feel are the starting point for mental training. Even if you don't have a sports psychologist who you're consulting, just breathing exercises, which are freely now available everywhere. I think many of us are exposed to good yoga, yogasans, or practices by yogis who actually do good breathing practices. Okay, that's a good way to start. Secondly, just writing good, journaling, like what has caused the positive, what helped you become more positive in the match today, for example. So these small things, and not writing pages by pages, but just small things which maybe the parent can help the child sit and do together.
Makes sense. So that brings me to you, Ayan, right? Vardhani mentioned about journaling and breathing exercises. Sleep is a very important component, and you come with such a great experience and research background on that. How important is sleep, and what is the linkage between sleep and performance?
Sleep in general plays a huge role when it comes to our overall well-being as well. So it's not just about performance, but it's also overall about our health as well. And this is not just, again, applicable to just athletes, but also to all of us in general as well. But for athletes, it's extremely important in the sense that, first of all, a lot of physiological growth and repair happens. Sleep is actually when your body is absolutely at rest, and that allows, sort of an increase in secretion of hormones like the endocrine hormone or the growth hormone, and it leads to sort of repair of the wear and tear that your body and your muscles are going throughout the day, because especially with sport, it's such a physical activity that you're constantly sort of pushing yourself, to the limits. So at the same time, it's important to have a proper rest and recovery. Now, you can do a lot of ice baths and you can do a lot of, cryotherapy and different things. But at the end of the day, sleep is where your body actually physiologically just repairs itself and prepares for the next day. So a lot of that happens while you're sleeping. Aside from that, a lot of cognitive functioning and memory is based on sleep. So we do know that when you sleep, memory consolidation happens, which means that it organizes and sort of stores our memory for better recall and better activity. So that means that when you're sleeping, you're actually allowing that memory consolidation to take place, so that when you get up the next day and you're doing the same activity again, especially because, again, in sport, it's a skill-based activity, you're doing a lot of repetition of different things. Memory consolidation is extremely important. And so it is extremely important for that reason for athletes to get a lot of sleep. Cognitively, you obviously perform better because if you sleep better, you have better concentration, you have better problem solving, you have better accuracy, you have better reaction. So the chances of us making mistakes or errors, especially right before a game day or before a match, it's extremely, again, important. And then, of course, we physiologically speaking, our immune function, so we're less likely to fall sick, we're less likely to kind of be ill, especially before important tournaments or important practice days. And then most important is emotional well-being. You are less cranky, you're less agitated, you are less angry,
That's important.
Yeah, and that's extremely important, because the more frustrated you are, the more it's going to affect you, and we all know that. So if you slept better, then in general, you are physiologically, mentally, emotionally just better prepared to face the day, whether it's a practice session or whether it's an important match, and sleep is something
so important.
Yeah, and sleep is something
I didn't know it's so important.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I mean, I'm just saying, wow, I didn't know it was so important. to
Yeah,
sleep.
and sleep is practice. A lot of people just think that sleep comes automatically. No, sleep is a habit. So it's something that we, ever since we are young, we are taught to have a schedule. We are taught to sleep better. So it's a habit that we need to develop ourselves, and that's where it becomes extremely important, because that is something that is very much on you to make sure that you're sleeping better.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. On that note, I'll have the parents, if they have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the Q&A. I'll be able to read those and ask the panelists those questions for you. But we'll go on. While we have any Q&As, I'll pose those to the panelists. Okay. So, Ayan, how much sleep is good sleep then?
That's a very good question. Ideally, a normal sleep, we would say an ideal sleep pattern is anything between 7 to 9 hours. Now, with an athlete, it's very difficult, because especially if they're student athletes, so I understand that it's very difficult with homework and with their daily schedules and school timings and school events, and of course, time for socializing as well, meeting family, friends, and etc.
Yeah.
It's extremely important. But I would still say if you try to get good quality, at least 6 to 7 hours of sleep, that is good enough. I would say if you try to hit at least 7 hours of sleep every night, that would be at least for student athlete at present adequate. Of course, if you are looking at professionals, if you look at somebody like a LeBron James or a Virat Kohli or Messi, they will probably have a good 12 hours of sleep in a day. So yeah, so they're spending a lot of time in bed sleeping and recovering, because of course their practice sessions are so much more strenuous, and well, they don't have school or college or anything of that to look at. So I would, it's easier for them to kind of have that, but you can clearly see the importance of sleep, for them. So I would say that at least to try and hit 7 to 8 hours of sleep would be good. If you can get 8 hours of sleep, that's great. But at least a minimum of 7 hours of sleep would be good to get for a student athlete, for sure.
Got it. You also mentioned about homework. I think that's one important aspect that I think we should spend some time on, because kids already have this pressure of academics, homework, all of that, and on that you're topping up with performance and sports. What do you tell parents when you're consulting with them, and what kind of actually questions you hear from them on this? What are the challenges they are facing? Amit, maybe you want to take that one.
I think Vardhani would be more qualified, more qualified to answer that. But I will add a little later on what Ayan also mentioned about sleep. But mine is more a practical advice. But I think we'll let Vardhani answer this question. Then I'll come back to what I want to add.
I think, like I mentioned earlier, there's always expectation on, the child needs to perform equally well in academics and equally well in sports. So that is the expectation, that is where it's coming from. Okay. So even say suppose there will be times, especially with student athletes, wherein they are spending a lot of time in practice. They don't like to come home and do their homework. Okay. But here is where I think the scheduling, like Ayan mentioned, routine is very important. So even if if you're made to do homework every day, the child may not end up doing it even a single day. So for example, studies. Okay. So but if you plan a week wherein you say, okay, let's try and do studies wherein there is a break day. Okay. You might end up doing a lot more quality work compared to what you end up doing, like say 1 hour every day. So, managing that, and I think that has to come from the parents also, because then, there is a confidence saying that, okay, I have, trusted my child, saying that, okay, ek din bhi 3 घंटे बैठ के करोगे, that's also good enough.
Hmm.
Okay. That's good quality work that's coming out, rather than, after practice, they're tired, you're compromising on your sleep, and you're sitting and just doing nothing, just, doing nothing, basically. That's where the parent has to step in and say that, "ठीक है, we know you're going to do great." And I'm sure kids do much better when the time is managed better. Yeah.
So, what I wanted to add.
That's an interesting one, because I see a lot of my Barbies and yes, Amit, please go on.
No, so what I wanted to add to what Ayan has said is absolutely it's vital. And the professional athletes, someone like a Michael Phelps during the Olympics used to sleep for 14 hours. I mean, they all know, and all these athletes, they do sleep, and we all see them. The young kids may see Virat Kohli active on social media, but he spent only a few minutes on that. Rest, his team is managed it. He's sleeping. He's sleeping to recover between matches, right? So that is very important. But I think the kids should also realize, and the parents of younger kids should realize, and even older kids, I mean, kids who are 16, 17, 18-year-old is not going to listen to their parents. So that's fine. But the parents should keep on telling them. I tell my boys who are younger, get into a habit where you keep your device away. Theory says that you should keep any device away 2 hours before you sleep. वो practical नहीं है, वो नहीं होने वाला है. So let's not be that stringent, but at least half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour, keep the device away, and also get the kids to reading a book, which you are killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're ensuring that they develop a habit of reading, and second, and book, not on a device. And second is that will help them sleep peacefully. Right. So I think that is something I have tried it myself, and it works wonderfully for me for many years. And I think we can do that, because I've seen a lot of kids, reading has gone out of the way. I know I'm digressing a bit, but I think it's all interlinked at the end of it. So that is something that they can practically try and implement. And I'll be happy even if 2 kids out of 10 implement this.
Makes sense. So Ayan, I have a question for you from the chat. A child wants to know that he's when it's exam time, the parent tells him to stay up late, but when it's practice time, he tells him to stay up early. So what do you say to that?
I think over here I would really drive home the point that Vardhani's already made, which is scheduling. Scheduling is extremely important. Having a set routine is important. A lot of the times, I think that's where the fight between the parent and the child comes in, is that they either want the child to stay up till late night during exams and to score well and do well and etc., etc., etc. And then on the other hand, they're always complaining when the child is up late night watching a match, so you can't have it both ways. And you need to have a routine. And scheduling is extremely, extremely important for this very process. So I would say, I would go as far as, when it comes to developing a schedule, I would go as far as to involve all stakeholders, and that also includes teachers as well. So I would say that it would be kind of like a meeting with the child, of course, because they are the biggest stakeholders in this. They are the ones making those sacrifices. So they need to definitely be involved. The parent needs to be involved as well, and so does the teacher, because then that kind of brings about a balance, especially if the child is veering towards becoming an elite high performance athlete. Then this scheduling becomes very important, because it's important to put down on paper what the requirements are. So, it may not be possible to get 80 or 90%. Those expectations are too high. So then you come to a point and say, okay, what is an acceptable line that you draw, saying these are the amount of marks or performance related aspects that I need. The second thing is, it's important to then develop a schedule around that. So, okay, like Vardhani said, homework doesn't need to be done every day. Maybe it's done once a week, maybe it's done twice a week, but then that routine is set for the week. That makes it a lot easier to balance everything out, whether you talk about sleep, whether you talk about homework, whether you talk about examinations, everything comes into play. And I know that it's very controversial to say this, but really that idea that you have to stay up all night, learn something, and then throw it up the next morning in the paper, and then you forget about it, because that's what happens. You know, you're not, ideally, I would say, even if it's exam time, what is the maximum? You're not going to stay up till 4 a.m. in the morning. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to remember anything. So we've already spoken that memory consolidation is very poor if you've slept well. So I, for example, I'll give you my own example. During school, I was never able to stay up late, you know, because I found that the day I stayed up late, I was actually doing poor in my exams, because now I don't have enough rest. I don't have enough sleep. I don't have, I can't remember or recall things as effectively as I would have if I had just gone to bed at a decent hour, maybe 11:30. If I'd gone to sleep, woken up at 7 a.m., gone for my exam, I would have done much better than staying up till 1 or 2 a.m., waking up at 7, not getting enough sleep, and going to an exam. So, for me personally, I feel that that is where a routine comes into play, and it's extremely important. And this idea that you need to stay up late, that means that you are a very dedicated student and you're going to do well in your exam. I don't think there's any correlation with it at all. I think it's more important that you get a good night's sleep so you can recall and answer your questions a lot better rather than staying up late at night. So that would be my kind of view on this, and I don't know if Vardhani or Amit have
No,
their
I have a kind of a question, because I know when I was growing up, I used to prefer to wake up early. So I used to get up like at 4 and then study. But my sister, who was my younger sister, she used to prefer to stay up late. And then, so I think everyone has a different style
Yes.
of
Yeah,
right?
that's where we call it as early morning larks and night owls. So that's where we call it. So again, to give you a personal example, so I was that person who could never stay up late at night. You know, I think 12 o'clock was my maximum, all throughout school, university, whatever it was. 11:30, 12, I was out. And then I would prefer to wake up in the morning and study. I used to study with my friend who used to do this. You know, she could never start studying till 7, 8, 9 p.m. at night. And then she would study the whole night and give the exam. But that is just how her circadian rhythm was set. So for example, the work she's working now, her work starts at 2 p.m. and then she works all the way till like whatever, 11, 10. And it suits her fine because she is not a morning person at all. So recent research has found that circadian rhythms are extremely important. So whether you are a morning person or a night person is extremely important for the kind of way you're going to do your work, So a lot of it's said that a lot of people who do like very art related or creative work, prefer to stay up later at night. They are sort of night owls. That's where they get the peace and quiet and they're able to do a lot of their work. Whereas other people are people who prefer to be up early in the morning. So that is very true. Unfortunately for us, our world is not developed for people who are night owls. That's where the problem is. Especially, and now there's a lot of research in the last couple of years is actually looking at later school times, because they found that attendance is better and attention levels are better if schools are later. So, there are a lot of countries now are experimenting, starting their school at maybe 9 a.m., instead of the 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning, because then, the kids have got proper sleep and proper rest. Unfortunately, it's going to be a while before I think those things actually are put into practice, because our world is created in such a way that, it is for people who are, sort of morning people. So, so I completely understand that. And I know that there are some people who struggle with it. But like I always say, it's all a question of setting that routine up and kind of developing that routine and to try and kind of, make sure that you have those habits in place to kind of have adequate sleep, because at the end of the day, that's going to drive your whole day is how well you're going to sleep.
Got it. Very interesting. Vardhani, one question that has come in for you. But despite all the scheduling that I tried with my child, there is always a negotiation. If I do this, then I'll get that. If I do this, then this happens. What would you advise the parent?
It's fine actually, it's a good reinforcer. Schedule it's see, I would suggest reinforcement based, rewards. Like, you reward the child with something which is relevant. Okay, nothing like, I don't like rewards which are like, okay, if you do this, I'll give you a chocolate. That's not a reward. The reward should be something more relevant to the kid, which they like, they enjoy. It could be like, oh, chal, yeah, this week, 1 additional hour of play. Okay, that could be one reward. Okay, so negotiations could be transferred into a reward system. Okay, rather than the, it's also like, I would also say the punishment bit will come here, because some people say that ye nahi kiya to I will not give you this. Okay, that is also perfectly fine. Okay, you need to understand, help the kid understand that it's, this is how the routine is going to help you. And if you do this, end of the week, we will do this for you. Okay. So one thing I want to suggest and tell the parents is, try to take maximum control here. Okay. Because what I've seen with many parents is they let go and they're like, chal theek hai, nahi kiya na, it's fine. It is fine, because how much ever I try, it's not happening. It doesn't happen. It's not like, it's not that way. You need to take control of the situation here, because you're a parent. You're a parent. Okay. So, and at that age, you maybe, it's tiring. I agree, but it's tiring for some time. And then the kid starts understanding, okay, this is what's happening. And then they start getting used to the process. So setting routines is not at all easy. I understand that, but try to take control of that yourself. Okay. Don't give up. As parents, you need to not give up, because then you can't blame saying ki nahi ho raha hai. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a very important lesson that maybe I also need to hear. I'm right now, I'm only a 2-year-old baby, but still I'm told I'm such a let go mother. I have to be stronger, take more control. So it's a good reinforcer to hear this today.
Yeah.
So I think moving a little bit towards, let's say, more high performing kids, students, right? Is there something more specific advice you would like to give parents who are looking for that high performance, who believe and have been told that their kids are good and they need to take that next level? Is there some specific advice beyond, the regular thing that you've already heard on role models, scheduling, journaling, sleep, breathing exercises? What is that, champion mindset? If we say stay true to the topic at hand, is there some, simple things that you would like to tell the parents on that next edge?
I just have one point. If, just continuing from what I just told, now taking control, here you have to let go. Okay. Because some of them try to take control of everything. Coaching, nutritionist ke saath, even they'll start doing the nutrition. It's not like that. Just let people do their roles. Okay. Because if you want your kid to really become an athlete, there are different people who play different roles. And I'm not saying like, this, say from a elite urban category wherein you have so many people attending to your kid. Okay. Even when, even if you see the, say 20 years ago also, there were coaches who took care of everything. Okay. But the parents didn't become coaches. That's one thing what I want every parent to understand. You don't have to take the role of everyone. Okay. You be parents. That's one thing what I would definitely advise, especially for the 14-15-year-olds. When we see a lot of extra involvement in the coaching, it hampers the whole thing. So let coaches be coaches. You be parents. That is one thing what I want to. Yeah.
Got it. So stay in control till you want them to, for the habit building, for the regular habits. But when it is about eliteness, then you need to take a step back and let the specialists do their job.
Yeah. And let them be independent, because that is something what, again, I've seen, parents don't allow the kid to be independent. Okay, let them take their own decisions. See if that works. If it doesn't, they learn from their mistakes. Okay, so letting go at that particular age is very important. Yeah.
Also, I think as the kid enters 15, 16, they're really now at a, I wouldn't say elite, but they are on the path towards that. And the parents' role needs to change. They need to adapt. And as Vardhani rightly said, they need to let go. And then the child, I think the parents then just need to ensure that the child gets the right support system, right? The infrastructure is there. So they have the right coach, they have the right strength and conditioning, because at that age, 14, 15, 16, for the kid to get into the right habits of training, physical training, of eating right and working on the mental conditioning part. So, we always advise that, it's 14, 15, 16 is the age when the child athlete needs to get into mental conditioning, work with a sports psychologist, right?
Okay.
And the parents feel that, hey, my child ko kuch problem nahi hai, why should he work, or she should work with us? But it's not that. We are only training, the sports psychologists only train them to use their mind to their advantage when they are in a pressure situation. The same way they have built their muscles or their endurance or their strength, this is another way of doing it. So that's what the parents need to encourage, and have the entire sporting ecosystem support the child, right? So that's what they need to do. And then they need to stay back, and they just need to ensure that they have provided the best, and they need to then stay back.
Got it. So one more question has come in, just how do I reduce fear in my child? I think that's related to also building confidence, but again, your insights there.
Yeah, I think Ayan can back me up here if I know it's more to do with psychology, but fear is always rooted in something. So it could be fear of failures, it could be fear of not disappointing your parents, not disappointing your coach. Like, I don't want to, that is how the fear starts getting developed. Okay, it's never about fear of losing only. Okay, it's just understanding all these things. Yes, if you feel that there is a lot of fear, it's always good to take a help of a psychologist, understand, where the fear is coming from. If there's some intervention at whatever age, even as young as 6, 7 year olds, they start developing fear of either failure or whatever. I think it's mostly about failure, but like I said, it has a lot of backing. Maybe it could be because how the coach has communicated, how you as parents, or peer pressure. There's peer pressure. I'm seeing it started. It's not like the teenage. It's even at an age of 8, 7. They have started having this peer pressure, I need to be as good as this person, as good. And if I don't, then, that whole fear starts coming. If I don't, then I am like no one in my school. I'm no one in my academy, that kind of a thing. And today's world, it's more about that. You need to be out there. If you're not there, then you're no one. Okay. So that maybe it could be that fear. Okay. So somewhere it's you just need to understand the root of where it's coming from, and it's always good to take a help of a psychologist. And if your child, like I said, if your child is young, you can accompany the kid with for the sessions and just see how things are.
Got it. Interesting.
I would agree with that. And also what I find is that usually it comes at an age when suddenly the sport becomes competitive. So usually what happens is that, up until a point, it's just, I'm doing this for fun and I'm just enjoying myself. And then suddenly they start improving and they start doing better and they start winning competitions. A lot of the time that fear sets in at a time when suddenly there's a lot more at stake. So, like what Dani said, it's the disappointment. Suddenly it comes, oh, I'm going to disappoint my parents, I'm going to disappoint my peers, and, my parents or whatever, so that fear usually sets in when the fun of just doing the sport goes away. And I think it's extremely important to always make sure that no matter how much you're doing in terms of competition or whatever, it's always underlying that fun needs to be there as an aspect, that just pure joy of just being there, playing the sport, just just sort of enjoying yourself. And I think that also ties in with that fear is what I'm fine. I don't know if I'm putting it to words properly, but
No,
I don't know if
yeah.
Vardhani can kind
No,
of
I
elaborate
think
on that.
you are right on that. Like the fun element needs to be there, and it could be just, say, like I said, if the parents are very much involved in the sport on a Sunday or on a break day, sit together, watch a match, just have a good banter
Yeah.
about it. It's not necessary you have to analyze every moment,
Yeah,
because that
exactly.
also kind of develops that whole family dynamic into only the sport. And that also is a lot of a lot of times I've seen that's only about like the whole pressure that has come in.
Yeah.
Like I have to sit and analyze this game. I can't enjoy it. That is how it's going. So yeah, so it's good to like like I said, making the environment of the house a little more relaxed. That is something what could be worked on in many sporting families I've seen, like which were like always just like I said, analyzing and seeing like how you should be like this, you should be like that. That can be quite
put in also some banter around it and not just
fun.
Yeah. Okay, we have a few minutes remaining now. Last call, if there's any questions, please feel free to put it into the chat with me. One last question that I see on the chat, Vardhani, is how do I keep my child away from electronics? Difficult one, I guess. And maybe if I add to that,
you can't keep the child. You have to moderate their use. Because you can't be drastic, right? You can't suddenly say that, hey, abhi nahi, now you have competition, you can't. But yes, of course, there are certain competitions which are at a higher level where elite athletes just are off social media, keep the phone away. They don't even have access to that. But I think what Danny and Ayan can add, I think moderation is a better way of handling.
100%. Yeah.
So maybe again link it to the scheduling, right? Then put a schedule to it. No?
Yeah, you can. So I'm sorry, Vardhani, if you wanted to.
No, you go ahead. Then I will add.
So a couple of things I do that sometimes works, and by the way, it's not just kids, huh? It's also adults. So just one of the things that I do is usually you can do kind of like a behavioral activity where you can say, okay, let's go offline and let's do some other activity. So, that could be some game or some family time or something like that. So that's something that can be done. You can do like a lights off time. So like, okay, you can use your electronics till whatever, like till 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. and then you can't do any more, so that's one thing. Wind down times are very good. So, okay, you can use it like, that kind of comes in with the moderation. Like you can use, your sort of phone up until certain times and then it's done, and you can kind of mitigate things. So I think that's where the negotiation and the moderation again comes in, is kind of just sit and say, okay, well, you can use your phone at this time, at this time, at this time, and rewarding that behavior kind of always helps. But ideally, like, kind of having a wind down time and maybe engaging the child in more passive activities would be a good thing to do, especially at night time, because we all know that, electronics at night is more of a stimulant than anything else. So that's something that can be done, is maybe doing a more passive activity, and the activity can always be moving towards the bedroom, so it can always be like, okay, let's do this first, let's do this first, let's do this first, okay, kind of trying to make sure that your child is satisfied that they did some activity, but that's not related to an electronic product, basically. That's what I would probably look at.
No, I think that's a great, those are great points, especially the involvement of the family is also necessary. Like I said earlier also, you can't just instruct the kid and you are on your phone. That's not the way it is, that's, I think what Amit also mentioned about like reading a book rather than, being on the phone. I think, and the second thing, what I've also seen is
Mhm.
when it's not necessary, I think a kid need not have a smartphone at an
Mhm.
age. Okay. It's not necessary for a 10-year-old to
Mhm.
have an iPhone. I don't think. No.
Mhm.
Uh, non-smartphones are also okay to communicate if they're traveling long, and like,
Yeah.
it's okay. So because like I said again, it's all about being the best. You're
Mhm.
also, I think the parents will give the best phone, but then that kind of, comes back to them because they're always on the phone. I've seen
Yeah.
that with a lot of kids who even in my society and even in the players that I'm working
Mhm.
with, most
Mhm.
of them have smartphones and they're always hooked onto it. So
Mhm.
that's somewhere I think we feel that when it's not necessary, it's okay to not have a smartphone with a kid. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
And secondly, excess electronics, like, of course, everyone would have a laptop and a phone at home, but I've also seen, too many iPads or too
Mhm.
many, that's
To
also not
restrict
necessary.
them.
Again,
Yeah.
these are like, these are like, it's there at home. So you just be on it rather than going and doing something else,
Mhm.
which is non screen or non electronic activity. Yeah, so
Got
I
it.
think just reducing or like just managing that bit also helps a lot, especially with the younger kids.
Makes sense. Thanks. Okay. I don't see any other questions. So, any last thoughts, Amit, Vardani, Ayan, before we close? From what we heard so far, actually, a lot of things that came out, a few things that are noted. Role models, very important, parents to play the role model role. Uh, build in those habits when the child is smaller. It's more about instilling the fun. If he starts to enjoy the sport, he will himself, have the motivation to go further. But when you're building that fun, keep simple things like scheduling, habits, journaling, make sure he sleeps on time, sleeps for enough hours, breathing exercises, take control. But once he's free, he's let's say hit the 14, 15, going for elite performance, take a step back, let him be more independent, let the coaches and the other support staff take control, uh, and reduce screen time if possible. So I think these are the few great summary pointers from me. Any last thoughts, Ayan, Amit, Vardani, from you before we close?
I think I just have one thing to say for parents of younger kids. Don't take the fun out of the sport. Don't start uh, regimentizing, I don't know if that's the right word,
Hmm.
their sports when they are 8 or 9 or 10. Let them just go and let them play multiple sports.
Hmm.
Let them just play 2, 3 sports, because playing multiple sports also develops their skills. It doesn't mean that a cricket player, if he
Hmm.
also plays badminton,
Hmm.
is going to harm his nothing. In fact, that's only going to help him or her get better.
Yeah.
So if you look at any of our great players or any players across the world, they have all played multiple sports when they were young. So
Hmm.
a lot of parents said, no, 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 you should not play this. You just play this. That I think should stop. Let them
Hmm.
just play multiple sports and they'll develop skills which will really help them with the sport that they eventually pick up, and let them just have fun. That's
Hmm.
what I need to say.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Vardani, any last comments?
No, I think something similar I wanted to just say, just enjoy the game. That's one thing. If as parents you have never participated in a sport, it's a good opportunity for any Sunday to like just play the sport with your kid.
Get
Okay,
involved.
so just maybe learn something from the kid also, and like just have a good family time. That
Yeah,
can also help. Like, like I said, just
sure.
ease down rather than just that, constructive analysis. It could just be like a
Yeah.
good wind down a day. Okay, so that could be one way that you can, just start getting more involved
Hmm.
in the game. It's not just about asking. It's not
Hmm.
one way. It's
Hmm.
just, it's also about being more
Yeah,
involved in the sport from your end. Yeah.
makes sense. Thank you. Ayan, your final thoughts?
Uh, I think for me, personally, it would just be don't underestimate the power that sleep and rest can have on you.
Hmm.
And I think this is not just relevant, like I said, for the athletes. I think it's for all of us, myself included,
Hmm.
is,
Yeah.
sleep is important. And, we we really don't know how much sleep has an impact on our daily life, on our health. And I think that everything from your diet, from your physical body, everything is impacted by sleep. And so for an athlete, it's even more important because it plays a role, whether it's their nutrition, whether it's their physical health, whether it's their emotional well-being. All of that is linked very much so to how well they've slept. And so it's extremely important to it's not something that can be just ignored and say, okay, well, we'll look at that later. No, it's something that you have to develop from now, so that the consequences, you're not dealing with them later on. So I think it's important to make sure that you underestimate, you know how much, how important sleep is, I think, to your health and well-being and your performance.
Awesome. Superb. I think it's been a great discussion. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I hope I'll practice some of these when my child grows up. Thank you again for your time. It was a great discussion.
Thanks, Nupur.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.